You are listening to When Life Gives You Lemons, the podcast that speaks to high-performing individuals who have been through adversity but come back stronger. I'm your host, Emma Levy, a physiotherapist who has helped elite athletes on their way to Olympic success. This podcast was born following my own trauma, when I was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of just 36. Sat in the chemo chair, I set myself the goal of starting a podcast to explore resilience and the importance of mindset. Big news this season, we are now on Patreon. If you enjoy what you hear and want more content, ad-free episodes, or just want to support the show, please head over to patreon.com/When Life Gives You Lemons, Emma Levy, or find us on the Patreon app. A small subscription fee, the price of one coffee, makes a huge difference and will help keep me recording. So here we are, season 8, and I'm going to ask you all a little favour now. If you are listening on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, please follow the show. By following, rating, and even writing a review, you can really help us grow, and that is what we need. We need a sponsor to help us keep recording, and for that we need growth. So I would love it if you could please help us out. Now on with this week's show. Today, I'm welcoming Sophie Grace Holmes to the podcast. Sophie is a world record holder, having run 36 marathons in 36 days with cystic fibrosis. As a baby, Sophie was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis and told it was unlikely she would live to see 16. Now in her 30s, she has truly defied the odds and claims that running saved her life. Sophie demonstrates that when mindset meets determination, there are no limits to what you can achieve. Sophie, thank you for coming to talk to us today.
Thank you for having me.
For those listening, can you explain what cystic fibrosis is?
Yeah, of course. So CF is an inherited life-limiting genetic disease that you are born with. And thankfully these days they do test at birth, whereas when I was born they didn't. It predominantly affects your lungs and your digestive system, but it can impact all kinds of organs in all kinds of ways by the build-up of thick, sticky mucus, which causes lung infections, which then in turn can cause lung damage, which then obviously means later on down the line, if you're not able to get control of this, you will have to either have a lung transplant or, unfortunately, you will lose your life. And, for me, I always remember what my mum and dad said when I got diagnosed, because for them it was an absolute shock. They'd never heard of it before, and they just said, it feels like we're bringing up a child to die.
How were you diagnosed if it wasn't picked up in a screening test?
So firstly, I was 10 weeks early, clearly eager to come into this life.
That's really early.
Yeah, so my two sisters were also 10 weeks early. So, we all wanted to get here quite quickly.
Were you the youngest?
Yes, I am.
So neither of them have cystic fibrosis?
No, but they do carry the gene. So if they were to have children, their partners would need to be tested. Because obviously with CF, both parents have to have the default gene. But I wasn't diagnosed until I was 4 months old because doctors just thought I was struggling because I was prem. And because my mum had had my two sisters prem. They're like, oh, you know what you're doing. We'll send you home.
Yeah.
And my mum's like, no, there's something wrong. She keeps stopped breathing. Like, she's not gaining weight. Because I think I was something silly like 4 pounds or something at 4 months old. And she kept going back and they were being very dismissive, like, nope, she's fine. And then I was admitted to hospital. My dad got me christened in hospital because they're like, well, you're not going to make it. And then there was a nurse that was on duty at the time. And people with CF, due to it being to do with the salt transfer, touched my skin, and she was like, actually, she's a bit salty, and she had a daughter with CF herself. So behind the doctor's back, sent up a test, came back positive, and they were like, right, we need to start action planning now.
Oh, wow, it's always the nurses, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I remember as a kid thinking that cystic fibrosis was, like you said, a life-limiting condition. But over the past few decades, life expectancy has more than doubled. Is that right?
Yes. So as you mentioned, when I was born, it was 16 years old. When I got to 16, it was 30. And due to medical advances, we're looking at 45 to 60. And I think now where people with CF can go onto these new medications from age 3, maybe younger, their life is deemed as, obviously, they may have struggles, but could be here for as long as 75.
Wow, it's amazing. Medical advancement is incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I, like I said in the introduction, I'm a physiotherapist. So I remember my first rotations in hospital working with kids with CF and, doing the percussion on their lungs, and their lungs were just full of secretions. And I'm therefore fascinated by the fact that you chose to run. So I want to ask you about how you entered that path of running, because my experience of CF is not a runner.
No, and what is really interesting, I think the information is very different now. But when I was growing up, believe it or not, I was told that exercise could kill me. Now, as you know, as a physio, I believe that you've got to work things to improve them. One being my lungs. My dad was a marathon runner. And my dad was like, do you know what? Like, we need to do everything. We need to make sure you're living a healthy lifestyle, you're eating well. So got me into running. I've done ballroom dancing. I had a horse, fortunately, which again was against advice.
Oh, really?
But I had this incredible doctor when I was in paediatrics, and he said to my mum and dad, he believes that people with CF should not be limited. So let her do the sports and things that she's really passionate about. If, and a big if, they start to make her unwell, that's when we would discuss it. So my mum and dad just went, yeah, okay, you do what you want. And then we will go from there. So I did dancing, and then when they wanted to do horse riding, so I got into that. And so alongside the horse riding, I did track sprinting. And I absolutely loved it. And I was actually pretty good at it, considering I had a lung disease, to the point where my coach was like, well, you're going to have to race the men because the women that are on this particular track aren't fast enough for you. So I did track for years and years and years, and ended up, when I hung up my shoes at 20, being 13th in the country.
Wow. So did you ever wear the GB bib?
I didn't get quite that far.
But pretty close.
For someone who got told that they should never be able to run, not a bad effort.
And was running difficult for you back then as a kid? Were you scared about making your CF worse?
No, because I think what's really interesting to try and help people understand is, like, I don't know any different. I didn't know what it was like to be able to run with a full lung capacity or normal lungs. How would I even think that it was any different? So what I did do was I didn't tell my coach, because I didn't want to be told or treated any differently. And he did obviously eventually find out, but I said to him, the reason I didn't tell you is because I knew that you would then be worried about pushing me in training. And he was like, yeah, you're right, actually. And he's actually a physio himself.
Yeah, so he would have been scared, especially
and
back
I said,
then.
I wanted to prove to you that I understand my body, and I know what I can and cannot do. And I didn't want to be limited by something that potentially was supposed to limit me. And I guess that's where the defiance comes from, through my 20s, and just wanting to show what's possible, because I think not just for people with CF, but anyone that faces any form of adversity, you can overcome more than people ever can imagine, and that's up to you to be able to do that.
Yeah, but how important are the people around you with that as well? Because, for instance, were your parents fearful of allowing you to, run and push yourself? Or were they also of the same mindset that, do it until you're not okay?
I think naturally they were worried because they're parents, I think. But they also knew that I wasn't going to be stopped. And the more someone said no, the more I would do it anyway. So I think they just wanted to support me and just be able for me to have as close to normal life around the hospital visits and things like that as I could.
Yeah.
And I'm forever grateful for that. And which is why I'm a massive believer in your circle and energies, and being able to be brave and have the courage to walk away from things, even if it's hard. Because I think it's easy to forget that we are only here once, but we tend to live the other way around.
Yeah, that's one of my biggest learnings since my cancer, is I really just try and be present.
Yeah.
I was always looking so far ahead, but you don't actually know what's next, but you know where you are today.
Yeah.
So, anyway, it's also about it's not just the big moments, is it? But it's the small moments that count.
I think sometimes it's the small moments that are more important, and it's something that I'm actually working on at the minute, because I'm sure we'll delve more into this, but I always was the believer, we have to do these big things and to be, worthy and all this stuff. And actually, sometimes the secret is in the small things that we do every day.
Yeah. But so I've read that you were told that you weren't going to get to age 16. Growing up with that belief, is that what made you defiant? Did you remember how you felt as a 12-year-old with that understanding of, you might not get beyond 16?
I just didn't believe them. I think maybe the power of naivety came in. And I was like, well, I'm the best in PE, and you're saying that I've only got a few more years to live. I don't physically or fully understand what is going to happen to me. Then am I just suddenly going to die or whatever? And because obviously I had IVs and things like that, but there was nothing to suggest that I was that unwell, that I wouldn't be here at 16. So I was like, okay, well, just keep going, keep enjoying life, keep kind of like pushing myself. And then when I did get to 16, I had a doctor and he was like, okay, so you're here, well done, but you won't make 30.
Oh my goodness.
And I think what's really interesting is like, if you had tackled someone with that information, with the mindset that I don't have, that could have been completely detrimental to that person. And so one of the beliefs that I've had over the last 20 years is trying to persuade doctors to have a different mindset, even if it's not what they believe, to talk to people and patients with hope.
Yeah, because hope is so important. If you lose hope, what have you got for these kids? But then at 19, you did get really unwell, is that right?
Yeah, so at 19, I had a series of unfortunate events back to back. I had my dog die. I had a breakup on the same day of a long-term partner, and I was starting a new job the next day. So a concoction of things, and just being 19, unable to handle all those emotions in one go, did become unwell quite quickly. And the doctors were like, well, here we are. It's caught up with you. Obviously, he was in hospital for a few weeks. Nothing was improving. And I remember there was this doctor that sat on my bed and he was like, at this rate, it's 2 years. And there's nothing you can do about it.
So again, they're taking away your hope so early on.
And I was like, okay, well, if we're going to go by history, this is the first time I've been this unwell. So for you to then write me off is rich. So I sat and wrote a very long bucket list, and I said to myself, I am going to prove to you that you are wrong. And I am going to come time and time again to clinic and show you that you are wrong until you listen to help so that you can help other people. And I didn't see this particular consultant for 5 years because he refused to see me. Because obviously I think for him it was a bit like, oh, she's back again, like whatever. And then one day he came in and went down on one knee and he was like, I am really, really sorry, but please I'm ready to listen now, like help me.
Oh, wow.
What are we doing now to make sure you're as healthy as you can be to live your life?
So even though the doctors think they know everything, this one accepted that actually you might understand some aspects of it more and you can maybe teach him.
I think, yeah, because obviously with doctors, a lot of the time they go on, numbers, stats, rather than trying to work with the individual of like, actually, maybe there is something that we can do. Maybe it's like more holistic or more to do with your nutrition or your movement or your mindset, not just medical.
Yeah, well, it's N equals 1, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that story that you just said about when you were 19 and everything else went wrong outside of your CF, how interesting is that? That those emotional aspects led you down to that physical path of illness.
Yeah, and I think it's something that's so important that everyone can think about, because I think stress as a whole really impact your health in so many ways that you can't ever imagine, which is why it's so important to be able to have things techniques that you can learn to tackle that, to try and not, become unwell and things like that. And it's been a repeated thing in my life where if I've got too stressed, I've ended up in hospital or whatever it may be. So for me, unfortunately, I learned to shut down emotions to try and prevent that, which is something, more recently I've been trying to undo. But I think it's interesting because I think you don't really realise the impact, because if you're anything like me, you're just like, I'm fine, just keep going, rather than actually sitting down and being like, okay, we need to tackle this properly. We can't just avoid or think we're going to be okay mentally, physically, because these things do catch up with us.
Yeah, well, they say there's no mind without body and no body without mind.
Yeah.
Then there's sometimes it's those uncomfortable truths, though, that we do actually need to face head on.
Yeah.
But that's not easy.
No, but I think the thing that I think people, or a lot of my friends try to get their head around when I was talking to them about this, is the hard stuff is what we need. And it's normal to have all of this. We are human, it's part of life. And so it's accepting that that's okay, and it's accepting having all these different array of emotions are normal. Anxiety, happiness, sadness, excitement, mundane life, all these things, because I think it's so easy to get caught up and be like, oh, I'm this. But actually, no, like you're not defined by anything but what you want to be. Yeah,
I had the psychotherapist Anna Mathur on my podcast, and she's written a book called The Uncomfortable Truths. And in it, she talks about the fact that all of, the stuff that you don't want to believe about yourself, but it's true and it's uncomfortable. But if we just face it and accept it, then it's easier to just move on, with that acceptance of the fact that it is uncomfortable, but actually it's normal.
Yeah.
An example of that is we are all going to die.
Exactly. And I feel fortunate that I've had the head start to be like, well, you're going to die. Well, thank you for telling me that, because now I get to live my life to the absolute maximum. Because I think you don't really think about it until maybe your 30s or 40s, be like, actually, yeah, or something unfortunate happens. But actually, I've been given the head start to be like, you've got to really live, and that's why I actually wouldn't change having CF.
Yeah, you faced that mortality so early on. And that's obviously given you the defiance, and it's also, like you said, taught you to really enjoy the hard things. And when you were 19 and you had 50% lung capacity, yeah. I read that you summited Mount Kilimanjaro with 50% lung capacity.
I did. Well, why not? You don't know, and this is what it comes down to. You don't know. Obviously, I'm not encouraging this for anyone. This is just me, but you don't know how capable and how strong you are until you try. And I had one doctor sign me off because she was a mountaineer. And she was like, I'm on the end of the phone, but don't be silly. And I had no altitude sickness, no problems. I got to the top,
How did your lungs feel up there?
Fab. But I think, do you know what's interesting? I've analysed this time and time again because I was with people who had serious altitude sickness. I just wonder whether, because my lungs are so used to being adaptable, that they just accepted and I'm used to having, being breathless, and things like that. Whereas if you're not, it's a really scary thing.
Yeah, but you're actually used to that feeling. That's quite interesting. But again, that goes to mindset. So if people aren't used to it and then they maybe have a little bit of a panic up there and then they start hyperventilating and then it's just like a vicious circle, isn't it? I read a quote you wrote on your Instagram which says you said it's the excuses you make today that will be the regrets you have for the rest of your life. Yeah. And that really resonated with me. But can you explain what you mean by that?
So I think as humans, one of the natural defaults we can have is to make an excuse not to do something. It could be simple as, I'm not going to do my workout today. But actually, the positivity that you get from something like that. And for me, I know that I would actually regret not doing it, especially if it's because I'm feeling lazy. And so whenever I'm trying to make a decision or kind of being in my own way about something because, say, it's hard or it's going to take a lot of effort or I'm just not in the mood, I'm like, will I regret not trying this or going after this goal or meeting this person or whatever it could be later on? And my biggest fear is not dying. My biggest fear is regret. Because although you can't live your life like that, if there is something you want to do and is within your power to make it happen, you will sit there on your last day and think, well, I could have had potentially this life or this life. And one of the things I like to think about, which obviously you can't translate in like black and white because it's life, it doesn't work like that, but is if it was your last day and you were 95 and I showed you a video of the life you had, you might have been very happy and very satisfied and all these things, but the life you could have had if you chased, say, that one goal that you didn't do that meant a lot, and your life, you could have had the life you had, but also you could have had that as well. What would you do? Would you go back and do it?
Yeah.
Probably take that risk and try. So I try and apply it to things when, I'm making the decisions or whether, the people in my life are right for me or things like that, because it's like we actually only have one shot and all we have is today. We can't change what's happened, but we can change what happens next.
And so you said that you're not scared of dying. Do you have any fear of death?
The only fear I have is dying feeling like I've not done everything I've wanted to do.
Yeah.
Which is why when I got told that I had 2 years to live, I went for it and travelled the world, did all these big challenges and adventures, because I made peace with the fact that if I've done everything I physically could and then it still caught up with me, then I've done everything.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously things are different now, and now I have other things to think about which are more adulting, like, oh, I do actually need a pension. And all these things that you didn't actually think perhaps that it would be for you. Like I assumed that I would be probably on my own, because who would want to date someone who would die, who could potentially die?
And really, what, you grew up thinking that you'd never meet someone? Yeah, and I was fine with that.
I'm perfectly okay. Obviously, I'm with someone, but perfectly okay and happy on my own.
Are you engaged now?
Yeah.
But that must have been difficult, navigating relationships with the knowledge that you might not make it past a certain age.
Yeah, and fortunately for me, I've met a lot of amazing people, and obviously some people said, oh yeah, I can't date you because you might die.
But they actually say that.
And I was like, well, so might you, but here we are, like...
Exactly. You might die too by crossing the road.
Anyone can get hit by a bus, so, not that I wish it on anybody, but I think people don't realise the reality of their words. And although, like, I'm very comfortable with that, it's also like, do you know what? I also accepted that if it's just me doing my thing, and so long as I'm having my friends and, like, experiences and doing the things that I want to do, then I'm really okay with that, because as history dictated, when I was hurt by people, I ended up in hospital. So then I was like, do you know what? Let's just live my life and have a good time for now.
Yeah. And so you had this bucket list, and on the bucket list was 30 marathons in 30 days when you reached 30. Was that right?
Yeah.
But then it got to 36. So talk us through that.
Yeah. So when I was 16, obviously got told, you're not going to make 30. So I thought, you know what? To celebrate life, being alive and healthy and able, I'm going to run 30 marathons in 30 days. And my last marathon will be on my 30th birthday. However, it was COVID at the time, so
of course,
my plans
COVID got in the
way. So what I did was I parked the idea, and I said to myself, one day the time will be right, because I'm a firm believer in timing and paths and everything. It will happen when the universe is ready for it. So obviously last year I got into the London Marathon, happened to have the Edinburgh Marathon, and I was like, I feel like it's time. But had to do an extra 6 marathons, and I thought, well, what's an extra 6 when you're doing 30 at the end of the day? So ended up doing 36 marathons in 36 days. But what makes it quite comical is the fact that clearly maths isn't my strong point, because I'd counted 35, and it was the coach that I had at the time actually said, just to let you know, I know you're advertising this online as 35, but I don't know how you've got to this number, because it's 36. So your last one in Edinburgh is now your victory lap.
So it was 36 marathons in 36 days. And how was that experience for you?
It was a phenomenal experience. It was possibly the hardest thing I've ever done. The most rewarding, but also gave me the opportunity to really learn about myself. And for the first time in my life, I had experienced something called the fear of achievement. Because I never doubted that I could do it. Obviously, I knew it was going to be hard, and obviously I knew that a lot of mindset would come into this, because, one marathon is incredibly difficult. But doing 36 in a row is something else, especially for the first 12 days when your body is literally screaming at you going, what are you doing?
Yeah. And it's not just the lungs that your CF affects, is it? It's also lots of other issues.
Yeah.
So that must have impacted in the whole experience as well. No, like abdominal issues, digestive.
So I've got digestive issues as well, which obviously causes a real problem, because it means that it's very easy for me to lose weight, which for some people listening probably would think, oh, isn't that lovely? It is, until you lose 5 kilos in 5 weeks.
Is that what you lost over the 36 marathons?
And I always knew that was going to be the case. There was never a doubt, and I always knew it was a risk. Yeah. But I also always knew that within a couple of weeks it would be back to where it was. Yeah. Because obviously I wouldn't be running like that. But
that must affect your fatigue, your energy.
Your lung function as well. But for me, I just wanted to keep this promise. I wanted to get out there and show what's possible for other people, to raise money for CF, just to kind of, it's like a full circle. I've done it, I'm here, showing what's possible. And it was a phenomenal experience, and I'm really happy I did those last 6, because they were the best 6 of the entire thing.
Really? So that's crazy.
Yeah.
So because London and Edinburgh, 2 big marathons, in between, were you just out running by yourself?
Yeah.
Oh, see, that must have been hard.
So I had the odd few miles with friends. Obviously, I couldn't ask my friends just to come on marathons with me. I had my dad as my crew. He'd meet me every 5K with some fuel.
And so they were proper marathons. You were going out and running. You weren't walking. You were running every marathon.
So because it's obviously I wanted the world record, I had to actually run a few hundred metres, which I know doesn't sound that much, further than a marathon, to prove the distance.
Oh, my goodness.
So I'd hit the marathon and be like, okay, 300 more metres, let's go. Which I know doesn't sound much, but when you've done like a marathon a day...
Yeah.
It's a lot, and I was so worried that that the GPS would drop out. I had 3 trackers on me, because I was like, I cannot do this again.
Yeah.
Well, I could, but I don't want
to.
You did
want to, yeah.
But it was, I think, one of my most favourite 5 weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
Why were the 6 last ones the best?
Because I felt fantastic, believe it or not. I think with these things, until you've experienced them or someone that's done them, you don't realise that actually after day 11 or 12, your body adapts. And because the human body is a phenomenal thing, if you really listen to it and push it, that the marathon distance became normal. It was like me going out for like a 5K. So I'd go out, do my thing, come back and be like, cool. And so like the last 6 were faster than the first 30. And it was just one of those things, like I'm actually quite enjoying it now because it's easy. And I probably could have done more.
Wow. So
But I also think I would
basically,
have been single. And
because you were using it, you were strengthening everything, I suppose. So you were getting better throughout the 36 days. So kind of teaching what you're trying to spread the message of it with everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, work the lungs and they get better.
Yeah.
And that's what I believe as a physio all the time. If something doesn't work well, let's strengthen it. It's the same thing. We can strengthen our mind by just putting ourselves through hard things. We can strengthen our body by doing it. We can get better runners by running. I mean, I'm considering what ultra event to do next year. I haven't yet done an ultra event, and I really want to do like an Ironman or an ultra run, but I do have fear at the moment, and I'm just trying to get over the fear. But everyone says if you've got the mindset, which I've got, you're fine.
Yeah, I think it's easy to feel the fear and feel overwhelmed by it. But actually, if you just break it down into week 1, this is what I've got to do. Week 2, this is what I've got to do. This is what I did for the training for the 36. Didn't even think about what the weeks were going to entail when I had to run 200 kilometres as a test run.
In 1 week?
Yeah, so I basically had to run, nearly 20 miles a day and then finish on a marathon.
And that was just training?
I felt great. I know, but on week 1, thinking of doing that would have been like, oh, actually, and even thinking about trying to do that now, I'd be like, oh, I don't know. But I think it's just like committing and then just working backwards with what you've got to do. But it's the reason I love the endurance is you will get to a point where you're questioning your life decision. But then that's your chance to say no, like I can then feel what I'm capable of, what I want, who I am. And that's where the growth happens.
Yeah. Oh no, I feel so inspired just like listening to, people like you. I'm like, I'm doing it. But you've not just done your 36 marathons in 36 days, is it? You've done quite a few epic adventures.
Yes.
So you did a ultra Ironman?
I did, and again, this was born off the bat that my lung function had dropped.
So it's all born on you feeling worse.
Yes. I was like, what can I do that's going to make me feel even worse? And no, I'm joking. But I think for me, it's like, I guess it's the proof for myself that I can do hard things despite what I'm faced with. And actually, it's the focus of needing to do the training that then improves me, right? Rather than the event itself. But that was a phenomenal day.
When was that then?
So that would have been 3 years ago in October.
Okay, so that was like 2022, so just after COVID. And what were the distances you did?
So I did a 5K swim, a 200 kilometre bike and a 50K run.
Wow.
So just slightly over an Ironman.
And that was by yourself?
Yeah, so I had support obviously from like friends, family. My partner rode the bike, had some friends run with me. But essentially the swim was on my own. And the reason that is so significant is because I did it in Lake Como, which is one of my favourite places. So I flew everyone out. We went. What I didn't really anticipate was the fact that the whole of my 5K swim was in the pitch black because I had forgotten about, life changing in October, it being darker. And I walked out and there was literally no lights around the lake. I didn't have any lake support because the boat that we were supposed to have was broken. So I was swimming 100-metre lengths in the dark. But I only had tinted goggles. And obviously where it's dark, you can't see a thing until the sun comes up a little bit. So the first time in my life I'd ever swam in the pitch black and all I could feel were the fish. But also when the light started coming up, because the lake's so deep, I couldn't see the bottom, which gave me vertigo.
Oh my goodness, that's terrifying.
But I was like, I've just got to get through this, because how am I meant to tell everyone that I failed on these 2 things, which if I just not shut my eyes, because obviously I've got to see where I'm going, but just get on with it, then it'll be done, and then we can move on.
That sounds awful. I feel scared thinking about that, just pitch black
ideal,
swim.
But
wow. And you've also done some mega paddleboard?
So I did an 80-mile paddleboard race from the Bahamas to Florida a few years ago as well, which was phenomenal. But again, this is a very me thing. And one of my friends would always joke, I'm never racing with you because the weather's always bad. And we had a storm that came in that night. And so we had thunder and lightning in the middle of the ocean, like bigger waves than we should have done. So I just laughed because I was like, do you know what? This is just typical, because it can't just be, oh, this is a hard thing. This is now, let's see how hard we can make it.
How many hours did that take?
About 10.5 hours.
Oh, that's pretty challenging.
It is when it's going through the night, because obviously all your body's doing. I was a little bit jet lagged. It was like, you need to sleep.
And then we kind of briefly touched on COVID. COVID must have been a really, really tough time for you, because you were obviously one of these vulnerable people and you couldn't, leave your flat for weeks on end?
I've got a really funny relationship with COVID, because I'm, firstly quite grateful for it in a way, which I'll explain in a minute. But also, obviously, for me, it was a very unsure time. So at the time I was an in-person coach in a gym, had been for years. I had to shut that business overnight to nothing.
Wow.
So one day I went in, the next day I shut it. Literally all of my hard work for the last 8 years done. Nothing I could do about it. And I remember waking up the next day being like, okay, so I've got a mortgage to pay. What am I going to do about this? So transferred my business online. Obviously it does take time. Was meant to be doing an Ironman, Austria. Obviously that got cancelled, so I did it from home.
You did it from home?
Turbo trainer, 50. I did basically a turbo trainer inside, and then I did the marathon on my front lawn, 50-metre shuttles.
50-metre shuttle? So how many was that?
It was 842 laps.
How were you counting that?
I had my watch on, but
fine.
I worked it out that it was about 842 laps.
Oh my
And obviously
goodness.
knees and things like that, doing shuttle runs, it's obviously slow because you can't sprint them.
Oh wow.
But for me, it was like a period of time where I didn't leave my flat for 16 weeks, didn't have human contact.
For 16
other
weeks?
than my mum passing me food through the window.
Yeah.
Luckily a ground floor flat.
I mean, but extra challenging by the fact that actually you didn't know how much future you kind of had at that point. You know, you've been growing up trying to fit as much into your life as possible, and then suddenly you're being told to stop.
Yeah. And I even had to give my dog to my mum because obviously I couldn't walk her. I didn't have a garden.
You forget about that. You couldn't even go out for a walk at one point, could you?
And I remember my mum was like, all she's doing is laying by the front door. It's like heartbreaking.
Oh my goodness.
But it was an opportunity for me to build a different life. And that is actually what I also wanted to be able to do. I didn't want to work in the gyms anymore. So it kind of took the choice away from me. Cutthroat. This is now or never, or you're going to have to sell your flat, or, you know, get on with it.
So you started your online training business?
Online training, working with brands through social media.
Right.
And I think this is where, like, you know, if you take risk and you're brave, it can pay off. And I think that's a huge reminder because I had no choice.
Yeah. Yeah. It's finding the opportunities, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sometimes when we have no choice, it's easier to do that. But we should really learn from those opportunities. You know, learn from those experiences that actually that's what we sometimes need to do and make the hard decisions.
Yeah.
And then we're going to reap the benefits in the long run.
Yeah. And I think it's trying to remember the bigger picture if you are going through something or you're struggling with a decision or a breakup or anything like that. Just think about the bigger picture sometimes, to be like, this is such a small period of life in the long run that you just have to endure and feel it and be okay with that. You don't need to, you know, achieve anything massive, just ride it.
Yeah. Have you got any anything planned? Any ultra events? Any world records?
No ultras at the moment. I have got the Berlin Marathon and I've got the Cape Town Marathon and the Valencia Marathon.
Oh my goodness.
All in the next few months.
Seriously. But that's easy for you now, no?
Oh, do you know what? Marathons aren't easy.
Okay.
And I do sometimes, where I'm training for Berlin at the moment, I'm like, how did I do that thing? Like, how did I run 36 of these in a row? Because I'm struggling to get out for a 20-mile training run. And I think this is the thing. If you don't use your mind, if you don't constantly practice being in uncomfortable situations or pushing like uncomfortable conversations, you do lose it. Because I remember thinking, oh, the marathons are easy now. And now I'm like, oh, marathons are definitely not easy. Like, I don't know how I did that. So I've got all these events. Never say never to do an ultra, but at the moment, it's not something that's on my scope. I would like to do another world record at some point.
Have you got an idea?
I do have an idea, which I'll talk to you about on camera. It has been passed by the world record.
Oh, wow.
But I'm not ready to announce it yet because I'm not ready to do it yet.
Okay.
It's going to probably be harder than 36 marathons in a row, although it's not as long as that.
Okay, you'll have to tell me off camera and then we'll bring you back when you do it.
Yeah, it's something that I really do want to do, but I think I would need a bigger team, whether that be some runners or whatever, because I think for me it's delving into a space that I've never delved into.
Okay, exciting.
But it is running, so I'll give that away.
Very exciting. What does running mean to you?
It means everything, because running is not only a place of peace, it's a place of achievement. It's a place you can go and do it when you're feeling sad, you're feeling happy, you're struggling with something, trying to find clarity on something. But also for me, it's proof that you can do hard things. Because running, no matter how long you've been running or how good you are, is always hard. Some runs you feel great, but for me, most of them, they don't. And I think that's what's important to say, because I think social media, it's easy to like see that, oh, running's easy to that person, or they're always motivated to do it. But actually, most of the time, running's just hard. But that's also why I like it, because you're constantly putting yourself a few times a week into the hard zone. Because I believe if you do what's hard, life becomes easier. Where if you do what's easy, life just remain hard. Which is why it's important to not stay in your comfort zone for too long, because it's dangerous.
Yeah. And I've heard you say that running saved your life.
Yes.
And for those that listen to the podcast, they know that my story is that running also saved my life. So I can really empathise with that. And running also gives me so much joy. But you run, I suppose, not just for yourself, but to show other people with cystic fibrosis what they can achieve if they want.
Yeah, because I remember when I was unwell, like I couldn't run more than 200 metres at a time before becoming hypoxic and all these things. And, you know, there are some days where I have to stop mid-run and be like, oh, it's not today, or like I don't feel great, or dizzy, or whatever. It still happens. And I think that's important to say because, you know, I think it can be disheartening if you are in that place. But also, you've just got to listen to your body. And I think that applies to everybody. Like, sometimes you got it, sometimes you don't. And that's just the nature of it. But it has saved my life. And it's given me the most incredible friendships, incredible experiences around the world, met some phenomenal people. And I think that's the thing, like there's so many different levels to it that it's just a great community to be part of, and the right community won't care how fast or slow you are or whatever, they just want to be there and have a good time.
Yeah, so for anyone listening to this that, you know, is maybe scared to embark on a running journey, they should just step outside, shouldn't they, and just start small and try.
Just don't take the pressure off and be like, I'm going to run for a couple of minutes, see how it feels. If I've got to walk, fab. Build it up, you know. You don't need to look at people that are running these fast 5Ks or running ultras. Maybe one day you do want to do that, and it's within scope if you're consistent.
Yeah. Final question for you, Sophie. If you could go back in time to when things were their toughest, so potentially when you know were really unwell when you were 19, what do you wish you could tell yourself that you know now?
Be bolder.
Sounds like you were pretty bold back then already.
I was bold, but I think having the knowledge that I've got now, and it's something that I constantly tell myself, like, you've got to be braver and got to be bolder, because we are the only people that hold ourselves back. And making decisions, whether right or wrong, will lead you to a better place. And I think, you know, back then, it took me, although I wanted to do all these things, it took me a little while to be brave enough to book the adventures. But actually, what's the worst thing that's going to happen, you know? Hopefully not going to die. But I would rather know that I've done everything I physically can and done everything I wanted to do. And I'm grateful for that moment of being unwell, because I would definitely have not had the experience that I've had.
Yeah, and no regrets, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sophie. For anyone listening, I'm sure they agree with me that it's just so inspirational to hear you speak. And next time I'm out running, if I'm feeling at all tight-chested or, you know, hard of breath, I'm just going to remember your story and remember how amazing it is to be able to do hard things, to have the opportunity to do hard things, and how lucky we are. So thank you for coming to speak to us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I really hope you enjoyed that episode with Sophie. I think she was amazing, so inspiring, so much to take from that conversation. And just remember, we can do hard things.